Hi everyone, and welcome to a brand new series of Beyond Disabilities. This year is a special year. If you've watched previous episodes, you know that this year is Beyond Disabilities' seventh anniversary. Today we have a wonderful two guests, one human, one doggy. We have Martine and Penta. Martine is a business owner, one half of the Dizzy duo with her assistant dog, Penta. Please, can you introduce yourself, Martine? Thank you for being here.
Hello, yeah, my name is Martine, and I have with me here my assistant's dog Pinter. We are known as the Dizzy Duo, and my small business, I guess, evolved really from a pretty devastating time in my life, which completely sent everything upside down, turned my
Yeah.
world upside down, literally. And yeah, things are very different now. They look very different to how I had planned them, but we're making the most of it.
Oh, I'm glad you managed to like make something positive out of like a terrifying, scary time in your life. What disabilities and conditions do you have, and what do they mean to you?
So, um, I guess the main thing that I'm affected by the most is SCDS, which is superior semicircular canal dehiscence syndrome, which is a
Yeah,
bit of a mouthful. Um, and it has completely changed my life. One minute I was getting ready for work, and the next I
yeah.
was on the ground, and my life was never the same again after
Oh,
that.
bless you.
But basically, yeah, what it means is that there's a hole in my temporal bone, which is the bone at the base of the skull, and also
Yeah,
in my semicircular canal. So it's also known as the third window syndrome because your semicircular canal has two holes, one at either end,
yeah,
and it's designed to allow noise to filter through it. And unfortunately, mine has an extra hole, which has affected my vestibular system really dramatically. So I get a lot of dizziness, I get a lot of noise interruption, problems with my eyes,
yeah.
and various other things, but it has affected every aspect of my life. And this is something that a lot of people with this condition do say. It's very rare, and it only affects, I think it's less than 2% of the population. It might even be
Oh, wow.
0.2%. Yeah, it's really rare. So yeah, it's been quite dramatic. But then, as a lot of conditions do, it's kind of brought along its friends.
That's a nice
So
way of thinking about it.
I also got diagnosed with very extreme complex migraine, triple PD, which stands for persistent postural perceptual dizziness. And I've also got hypermobility spectrum disorder, which is probably EDS, but because I also have rheumatoid arthritis,
Yeah.
I've not been able to get that EDS diagnosis because my joints have become stiff as I've got older. So, yeah, there's quite a lot of things going on, and most of these diagnoses, apart from the hypermobility spectrum disorder, are quite recent, really. Yeah. So it's been a big adjustment, but I'm kind of, in a way, this sounds really silly, but I'm kind of happy to have the
Yeah,
diagnoses,
it's a good one.
because, yeah, because without being diagnosed, there are no doors that are open for you.
Yeah,
And I think that's the main problem with especially very rare diseases, is that without that diagnosis, it's a very scary situation to be in. And there's a lot of unknowns. So yeah, it's been an interesting roller coaster.
oh wow. Yeah, I was doing some research last night and when I was writing the questions and I'm completely open and honest, I haven't heard of a few disabilities and conditions that you have, particularly SCDS and hypermobility spectrum disorder. But honestly, you're always right. When it rains, it pours. You don't just get one disability condition; you get all its friends
No.
with it. And I can imagine that it was quite shocking when it all happened. But like you
Yeah.
said, it's quite fortunate that when you do get the diagnosis, you're right, at least you get the support and hopefully some support with those disabilities and conditions. But
Yeah, absolutely.
if you feel comfortable, to go back to the beginning, how and when did you get your diagnoses? And do you remember the feelings you had when you got these diagnoses?
So I guess it's probably best to start with the hypermobility,
Yeah,
really. So I've always had hypermobility, and it's always been a big problem in my life.
yeah,
But I guess I'm quite lucky in that I've always been really quite a resilient person. So I've been able to get on with it to an extent. But what I found was that with a lot of my hypermobility issues, they just sort of circled around hurting myself quite dramatically.
yeah,
So I remember the first time it happened, I think I was probably about 12. And when I was young, I was really into horse riding.
oh wow,
And yeah, I was absolutely horse mad. I don't know if I've mentioned already, but I live in Guernsey, Channel Islands. And growing up, I'm 45 now,
yeah,
but growing up, I just spent all of my time outside. I was always very much
yeah,
interested in nature and animals and those kind of things. And I really got into horse riding, and I would go around my neighborhood riding everybody's horses.
that's
And
amazing.
I was always really lucky that I had lots of people around me who were probably a bit more well off than my family were at the time,
Yeah,
and were like really welcoming and would say like, oh, can you help me with this, and I'll let you ride my horse. And like, I had such an amazing upbringing. It sounds really idyllic, and it really was, honestly.
does sound beautiful.
um, Such an amazing upbringing. um, but what I didn't realize at the time was that I had this problem with my joints, and when I was young in particular, my knees were the most difficult. And my so with hypermobility spectrum disorder and EDS in particular,
Yeah,
one of the things that is really prevalent is bony defects in your joints. So, as I found out later on, my joints were so your knee joints have cups, but mine
yeah,
were flat like this. So, when I started really getting into horse riding, that's when it got the worst.
yeah.
And my knees would just pop out of their
Oh
sockets at
no.
any given opportunity. But the problem was, once they popped out, they wouldn't go back again. So um, I remember this one particular year, it was Christmas Day, and I'd been given some juggling balls by
Yeah.
Santa.
Oh, that's cute.
And I dropped one of the juggling balls and I bent down to pick it up. That is literally all I did. And
Yeah.
my knee popped, and it it wouldn't go back in. So I had an ambulance. I had to wait for 8 hours because I'd had something to eat, and they couldn't give me anaesthetic. So my Christmas Day was completely miserable, that I in the children's
Yeah.
ward
Oh, bless you.
with gas and air and all these kind of things. I mean, it's if anybody's ever done that before, they will tell you it is the worst pain you can imagine. Like, I've never felt pain like that, and I am a mother.
Yeah.
So, like, I've honestly can say it's horrendous pain. So, yeah, and after I did that the first time, it just kept happening over and over again. And I had a couple of operations when I was quite young,
Yeah.
under 18, which didn't work. So it just continued to happen until I was 18, and they got me into surgery straight away. So then I had my right knee reconstructed, and that was quite a big surgery. And then when I was 24, my left knee suddenly got worse, and I had to have the same thing again. I had a daughter by then, and all I did
Bless
was
you.
stand yeah, stand funny when I was pushing her on the swings and I dislocated my knee. But luckily for me, I had the same surgeon who knew me and was like, we're just going to go straight in and do this operation now. We won't mess around. So, in a way, that was quite good. But like, I'd also in my childhood dislocated my shoulders, my fingers would dislocate, like anything that could pop out of the socket would. So, I did have quite a difficult time with it as a kid. But like I say, I've just always been one of these people that can just go, right, okay, this sucks, but I've got these things to look forward to. And I think that's why I've struggled so much with the
Yeah,
SCDS, because I found myself in a place where mentally I just couldn't get there. And it really was such a life-changing event that occurred. And I think in a way, because it's my head, in some respects, this is going to sound really weird, but in some respects, when it's like a joint that's at the end of your arm or like on your legs,
yeah,
you can almost separate that from yourself. But
yeah.
when it is like the very center of who you are, it's different. And
Doesn't sound weird
that
at all.
that's how how why I've struggled with that so much, I think. Um, but also so yeah, that was the hypermobility. I've always had migraines, and I remember being 8 years old and I could see like this red line around everything,
Yeah,
and my parents panicked and they got a doctor on call out and he said
yeah,
she's got migraines definitely. So after that, you you pop some paracetamol and you get on with
yeah,
things again. It's difficult, but it's very prevalent among females, especially like around puberty and stuff like that. It can get a lot worse. And my migraines had got a lot better until probably about so I had my SCDS attack in 2021, the main one, but in 2020 my migraines got so
yeah.
much worse, and I'm certain there's a link between the two. There must be, but I started in 2020 getting hemiplegic migraines, which I had never had before.
No,
And I don't know if you've ever heard of those, but
I haven't heard.
basically, no, basically they cause paralysis on one side of your body.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, my face would
Cool.
just I'd look a little bit strange. My eyes would twitch and stuff like this. And I tried so many different medications. And then with my SCDS, what happened was I was getting ready to go to work. I was in the bathroom. I just put my makeup on. I
Yeah,
was about to head out the door, and everything on the right side just went black. And what I thought I passed out.
yeah,
But then when I had like collected myself, because I was laying on the bathroom floor and I'd pulled the washing basket over with me
yeah,
and my head was like buried in it. So I thought I'd passed out, but I think in hindsight, what actually had happened
yeah.
is like the washing had landed on me and I'd been in blackness.
Oh, no, that makes sense. Yeah, oh, bless you. That
Because
must have been
my vision
terrifying.
was covered.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. But then I came to and I tried to get up, and as soon as I moved, I got dizzy again and I went down again. And I was home alone, and I just remember talking to Siri on my phone,
yeah,
saying, like, Siri, phone my partner. And then she was out on a walk. She came running
yeah,
home and she phoned an ambulance.
yeah,
And the ambulance came, and I was on the floor, and I'd been waiting on the floor for quite a while for them as well. So things had started to
yeah,
ease off a little. When I had my first SCDS attack, I also didn't have triple PD yet, so I recovered a lot more
yeah,
quickly. And they came in and they basically, the paramedics, they checked me over. I thought I was having a stroke. I was in such a panic. And he he said to me, I think that you're anxious. And he basically said to me, go and speak to Healthy Minds, but
Oh,
took me to hospital to get
yeah.
checked out. It was the weirdest thing. And that was the start of absolute gaslighting. And I don't want to sound
No, no, not at
dramatic
all.
or like pessimistic, but because nobody could pinpoint what was wrong with me, it was then immediately mental health, which I just couldn't
Yeah.
understand. I'd never had a mental health problem
No,
before, for a
not at all.
start. So it made absolutely no sense to me. And um, that sort of started this cycle of trying to get to the bottom of what was going on. And I had this doctor who was just constantly treating me for migraines. And in the end, I got referred to a neurologist who told me he thought I might have MS. So well, nearly all of the tests for
Yeah.
MS. And he said he'd ruled that out. And so he was sure it was migraines. And I was just sat there going, this is not migraines. I know it isn't. But one of the other things that held back my diagnosis quite a lot, I think, was that I was hiding some of my symptoms
Yeah.
because I was so paranoid that I was going to get told that I was absolutely crazy, because
Sorry to
the
hear that.
symptoms are they're so weird that like you just can't believe they could happen.
Yeah.
So like I remember this one time I was sat with my mum and I said to her, Mum, I can hear my eyeballs moving. And it was the one symptom that would have got me a diagnosis. And
Yeah.
she said to me, whatever you do, don't tell anyone because they will cart you off.
Oh
And I
no,
was
I'm sorry
like,
to...
something is really wrong with me. And I know it is. And like, no one's listening. And it
Yeah.
was the most frustrating, awful thing. And then and that like nobody the thing that got me was nobody asked me. So nobody asked me if I had these symptoms, and if they had, I probably would have got diagnosed, but
Yeah.
nobody thought to ask. I'm not even sure if the neurologist knows about SCDS, to be honest with you, because technically it's a crossover because it's managed by neurologists and ENT specialists.
Oh,
So
so one of those
it's
great
kind of
conditions in the middle.
yeah, it's kind of a bit like, whose responsibility is it to diagnose this? And because I was having so many really pretty awful um treatments for migraine as well. Like my whole faith in my doctors was really waning, and
Yeah.
I just couldn't I wasn't convinced I'd ever get to the bottom of it, and I was just convinced that these treatments were going to continue getting worse. Like at one point I had occipital nerve injections, and they basically go under your skull into your occipital nerve, and they they are so painful afterwards. So at the time you have them, they're I suppose if you don't like needles, they're pretty bad.
Yeah.
But if when you're recovering from them, it's horrendous. Like I had such a bad reaction to them, and I still now get occipital neuralgia because I had those injections.
Yeah. Sorry to
And
hear
and
that.
I didn't need them.
No.
That's the worst thing. I didn't need to have them because the symptoms they were trying to stop weren't migraine.
No.
That's the frustrating thing, like I did, and this is where this grey area is so awkward, because I do have migraine, but the symptoms weren't migraine.
Yeah.
So,
Makes
it's
sense.
very difficult. But my savior absolutely was Dr. Mitchell. I've got to give him a shout
Yeah.
out because he's a GP at my local GP surgery. And what happened was, my usual GP that was dealing with me was on holiday, and I just randomly got an appointment with Dr. Mitchell instead of my usual GP. And he put me so at ease that in like one session I was able to tell him this symptom
Yeah.
that I hadn't been able to tell anyone else, just because I just immediately felt like I trusted him.
Yeah. It's a good feeling that.
And Yeah, it is. And I just said to him, look, I've got this symptom. I can hear my eyeballs moving. And also, I'm sure that my dizziness is triggered by noise. Because the other thing, sorry, I'm backtracking a
That's
lot,
okay.
sorry.
Honestly, no, you don't need to apologize. Honestly,
Yeah, the other thing that had happened was I'd got my Pinter
yeah,
to help me with migraine because I was so desperate to control these migraines. And I was also like getting told I was mad all the time. So I was
yeah.
like thinking, I've got to accept this diagnosis and do what I can to help myself. So I got my dog and I had taking her. So I live in a very busy built up area, but there's a very quiet graveyard behind my house.
Yeah.
And it sounds a bit morbid, but I love graveyards because they're quiet and I
Yeah,
have a
peaceful.
condition that is affected by noise. So I was walking my dog in the graveyard, and in Guernsey we have a castle that's in our town, and
Oh,
every
wow.
day at noon it fires a cannon. And I was in the graveyard and I had just completely lost track of time.
Yeah,
And I would normally have been home before that cannon went off. And I don't even know why, because I'd never made the link with the noise before this, but
yeah.
somehow subliminally I must have known. But I was in the graveyard and the cannon went off, and next thing, I was on the floor and my world was spinning. And that was the first time I realized my symptoms were noise triggered.
Oh,
And
wow.
so I mentioned this to this GP, and he said his words were, I'm convinced still that you have migraine, but there is this one condition that is really rare. And he said, and I want to test you for it. He said, go home, look it up on Google. It's called SCDS, and tell me what you think. Well, I went home. First of all, I was a bit like, this is amazing because you very rarely get doctors
Yeah,
that give you the freedom to go and research your own condition. And
absolutely.
like to me, that put even more trust in him, because the fact that he's saying to me, go home, look at this, see what you think, and if you want to be tested, let me know. Well, I went home and I looked and I was like, oh my goodness, all of the things on that list are so specific, but so random. And I knew it was what I had as soon as I saw it. I thought, I've definitely got this. I knew. So I made the call. And funnily enough, he almost got it right, just not quite, because he sent me
Nearly.
for a scan. Yeah, he sent me for a scan, but he put me in for an MRI scan. And I was so lucky that my dehiscence showed up on that scan,
Yeah,
because normally it wouldn't. But mine is quite a big dehiscence. So a dehiscence is basically a hole,
yeah,
and it showed up in the scan. Whereas if it hadn't have been as big, it would have not shown
yeah.
up. So I was so
Oh,
lucky
that's
that it did.
unfortunate.
Yeah, so then he sent me for another scanner CT so they could see exactly what was going on. And after that, everything moved pretty quickly. I got referred to ENT. Um, Living in Guernsey, the skills of our specialists are quite limited, so we often
Yeah,
get referred to the UK. So then after seeing the ENT specialist, I got referred to the UK. And then I saw a specialist in Portsmouth. Now, I think the most disappointing thing for me was that I saw the ENT and he said, this is a really hard diagnosis. I've only met one other person like you in my career, and this guy was close to retirement.
yeah,
Um, and he said, but the good news is there's an operation you can have. So I went to Ayfield with like hope I was going to get
yeah,
better and be well again. So it was disappointing when I saw the specialist in Portsmouth, because he basically left it with me as to whether or not I wanted to have surgery. But his words were, you're not an ideal candidate. You've got complex migraine. There's a 20% risk that if we do an operation, it's going to go wrong. And that 20% then tend to be people who present like you with
yeah,
migraine and those kind of things. Um, so basically, the operation is very often successful for people who just have like sound related symptoms, but for people with dizziness, it can, and a lot of the time
Yeah.
does, make your vertigo worse,
Sorry to
which
hear
to
that.
me is absolutely terrifying. Yeah, thank you. Like, I can cope with the noise related issues that I have. I've been coping with them for almost 5 years now, but I
Yeah.
know that if I got more dizzy, I wouldn't cope. So unless I get dizzy even more, like, naturally, I probably wouldn't go for it.
Yeah.
Um,
It's understandable.
it's a scary one. It is very difficult. But, unless a person has had vertigo, and I mean proper vertigo, it's not really something that it can be understood. Um, because, I think the difficulty with vertigo is that everybody's got a different interpretation of what that looks like. And when I say I've got vertigo, some people think, oh, you just get a little bit wobbly when you're standing somewhere high and looking down, or other people might think,
Yeah.
oh, you're a bit lightheaded. It's not like that at all. It's like absolutely, it throws me to the floor. And yeah, I just can't, I can't deal with it. It's so scary. Um, yeah, and the anxiety, I've never had anxiety like it before in my
No.
life. Um, yeah, it's been a hard journey. And then the triple PD. So one of the other interesting things about my diagnosis journey was that after I was left with this decision to make, I found it really hard to make that decision initially. And my specialist in Southampton sent me to see so his idea was that it would help me to make my mind up if I went to see a vestibular physician. So
Yeah.
he sent me to a vestibular physician who was able to sit with me and look at all of my symptoms and separate them out so that I could see, this is SCDS, this is triple PD, this is complex migraine. And the separation of those symptoms was really helpful to me, because it made me, first of all, realize what would be helped by surgery and what wouldn't. And it helped me to make that decision as to whether I felt I could carry on if it went wrong, because I think that for me was the main concern, not having had issues with my mental health and stuff before this. Um, my fear is that if it got worse, would I then be looking for an answer that maybe might seem quite extreme to some
Yeah.
people, and I'm convinced that I absolutely would. So, I mean, and that's really hard to say. And I've said it a few times in front of family and friends, and they've been horrified. But fact is, when I was going through this at the beginning and I had just started getting these symptoms, like, I this is a very honest and open
Yeah.
conversation, but
Absolutely.
I had Googled how many paracetamol it would take to end my life, because
Yeah.
I knew that I couldn't live with vertigo to that extreme. But a part of my journey has been learning what is setting off the vertigo and avoiding it, which
Yeah.
sounds really sad. And
Oh
it
no,
is
not
really
at
sad.
all. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it
It
is
is,
kind of
yeah.
sad because it's meant my life, my life has changed
Yeah.
con- to the extreme that, like, I used to be an outdoorsy person, now I'm an indoorsy person, and
Yeah.
I used to be sociable and now I'm very isolated. But you know it's you develop skills to cope with these things, and I think when doors close, when you have to give up things,
Yeah.
it's really important to find other things
Definitely.
to fill those gaps. And that's where it's, for me, that's what I consider I've done, really, is try to find other things to find joy in, because otherwise what's the point? There's not really much
Yeah.
point. So yeah, I try really hard to stay positive. And yeah, like, for example, I can't really go out with my friends anymore, but I'll have them round at my house and
Yeah,
we'll just do more quiet activities than we used to and stuff like that, you know. And yeah, life has changed a lot, but it's not terrible. I guess that's a good
yeah,
way of putting it. And I've got my dog. I mean, my dog is the most amazing thing that's come out of it, really, because um, you know, she's filled a void for me that would be huge if I didn't have
yeah,
her. I put so much energy into her, you know, her as a pet and as my assistance dog, and training is really fun, and her companionship. She's sitting staring at me because she knows that I'm talking
talking
to
about.
her.
Oh, bless her.
She's staring at me with her head like this.
You talking about me,
Yeah,
mum?
yeah. She's so funny. But yeah, I absolutely love what I do and the way things have evolved. Um, and like I really hope that in time my small business will grow and I'll be able to take care of myself financially again, because I think that's
Yeah,
one of the hardest things is the financial side of things, having to give up my job, which I loved and stuff like that has been probably one of the hardest things for me. Um,
yeah, it's
yeah,
understandable.
a lot of changes. Sorry.
Thank you for sharing your journey. It definitely sounds like a massive change, and I can, whilst I don't have
Yeah,
disabilities or have any disabilities similar, I can completely sympathize that yes, it's terrible and life changing, but it's good that you're slowly getting round to a place where
yeah,
you're sort of coming up with coping mechanisms and like finding new things to I don't want to say replace, but adapt to what you used to do and
yeah,
what you used to have and be able to do and I'm glad as a dog owner myself and a person with disabilities, I don't think I ever explained, but I'll say like with autism, ADHD, dyspraxia, and depression and
mm,
anxiety as well. I know how much having a pet like fills a hole and definitely helps you feel better and gives you sort of a purpose in life as well. Like yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's because I suppose I have to function for her, you
Yeah.
know? And I think that that's why one of the reasons why having a pet is so worthwhile, because without her, I probably would have given up a long time
Yeah.
ago, but yeah, she's still staring at me with her head cocked to the side.
No, I
You are
completely get
funny.
that. I live on my own. I had my first house. Bought my first house. Ooh, what's the day? A year today, I think it is, or a year yesterday. And the first thing I wanted was yes, I can live on my own. I can live on my own, but yeah, I definitely wanted a dog with me because it's just nice to have someone there. You know, she's fast asleep
Yeah.
on the sofa behind me. Um,
Oh,
but yeah, I completely relate to that. They definitely help with all sorts of disabilities and conditions. Thank you all for listening to Beyond Disabilities. Please make sure to come back for part two. Thank you to my amazing guests, Martine and Pinter. Remember, you are loved, and that love is love, no matter your sexuality, gender identity, or disability, or body size. Everybody is beautiful as long as you're happy with yourself and your body. That's exactly what matters. If you are in the UK and you'd like a confidential talk with a professional regarding mental health support, you can visit mine, Samaritans, or Switchboard via phone or email. If you're not in the UK, then please look out for your local health services support. Please spread the love and positivity. We should be accepting and inclusive every single day. All the podcast episodes are available on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thank you so much for listening and see you in part two.